Hey everyone! In this video, I'm going to provide a brief introduction to surveys in the age of big data, as well as the total survey error framework. So, given our discussion of big data and new data sources and collected online, um, all of these new developments kind of beg the question: why should we even care about surveys in the age of big data? Do we actually still need surveys? And of course, the answer is yes, we do. We will always need surveys to directly ask people questions. The reason why we will always need surveys, even in the age of big data, is that big data sources, as we talked about in the past, are inherently limited. They usually don't contain all the information that we need, depending on our specific research question. There's another deeper reason why big data are limited, which is big data are oftentimes help us to observe people's behaviors and kind of observe people's external states, but they don't really allow us to get direct insights into people's internal states, into their attitudes, potential emotions, and things like that. Right? Granted, capturing these in surveys is also not trivial and not always easy, but at least the ability to ask people about their motivations, about their attitudes, about their potential emotional reactions to stimuli or things like that are things that are oftentimes not measurable just with digital trace data or other types of big data sources. So we need to ask people questions to answer certain social science research questions. And lastly, even if big data sources had all the information that we wanted, oftentimes, as we talked about, they are not accessible, right? Due to legal restrictions or simply due to the fact that they're proprietary, and companies might not be willing to share all their data. They're often too not accessible enough, and so we still need to kind of complement our data collection efforts with survey data. So overall, that means we will always need surveys to ask questions, to directly be able to directly inquire respondents and making inquiries about for example, their internal states. But how we're going to ask these questions, that is going to change with the age of big data. And one very important framework to think about how surveys change and how they changed, how they were organized in the past, what the challenges were in the past, and what the challenges will be in the future. One important framework to kind of think about these challenges, but also the opportunities, is the total survey error framework. And the total survey error framework basically kind of describes all the potential biases and all the potential kind of deviations in our measurements from kind of every step in the data collection process. Okay, so specifically, when we talk of the total survey error, we mean the combination of representation error and measurement error. Okay. So what is representation error? Representation error are all the errors that are related to who we are asking in our surveys, and that's what we mean by representation, right? So those include aspects like potential coverage error. Coverage error is basically error that occurs due to the fact that the frame population, so the sampling frame, or the population of the sampling frame, does not match the actual target population. Okay, then we can have sampling error, right? So well, if we start with a target population that we want to make inferences from, first we usually don't directly sample from the target population. We sample from from some sampling frame, and so going from the target population to the frame population, that's where this coverage error can occur. And then going from the target population to the actual sample, this is where sampling error occurs, right? So you could think of people, for example, if you think about like a telephone survey, your target population might be people in the phone registry. But if for some reason you can only call certain numbers, then that are in the phone registry, then that would be kind of a sampling error, because you don't sample, or not every phone number in the registry might have the same probability to actually end up in the sample. So that would be sampling error. Okay, the sample population does not necessarily match, or there's systematic biases between the actual sample and the frame population, the survey frame. And then lastly, the last step is non-response error. So here we're talking of respondents who were included in the sample, but then ultimately either refused to answer the survey or refused to answer individual items. Right. So all these issues kind of jeopardize to what extent we can generalize our results from the survey to the target population that we're actually interested in. Okay. But that's only one part, right? And usually, oftentimes, when we talk about kind of quantifying uncertainty, the uncertainty around our estimates often focused on sampling error itself. But the issue is that there are more potential biases and potential errors that can creep in related to how we get to the sampling frame, and also later when it comes to non-response behavior, right? And furthermore, this is only the first part of these total survey error, because the other part is measurement error that is related to how we ask our questions in the surveys, right? And these are issues related to question wording and question ordering, and issues like social desirability bias that might systematically affect how people respond to our surveys. And the key issue, or the key insight of this total survey error framework, is that problems with either representation or measurement are ultimately can jeopardize our inferences that we're trying to make based on the survey, right? So it's not sufficient to just look at sampling error as the only kind of aspect or the only source of uncertainty. We have to think about every individual aspect in our survey design and in the data collection process to kind of express how much error and how much uncertainty there is around the estimates that are based on our specific survey, right? And so as we talk about how survey research changed over time, and we talked about this in past weeks as well, we kind of want to think about how different kind of techniques and different data collection strategies have different implications on each of those individual levels in the total survey error framework. Okay. So in the next 3 videos, what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on this third era of survey research, and this is something going back to the second week when we read the Groves paper that outlined these 3 eras of survey research. And if you kind of recall in the Groves paper, if you recall that the first era was kind of sampling based on geographic areas, mostly face-to-face surveys, and the data environment was just the survey itself. The second era came with the rise of telephone surveys and random digit dial methods, but again, they were still kind of standalone surveys, right? And so the new era of survey research that we're now in is characterized by kind of the abandonment of these probability-based sampling procedures and for example, random digit dial phone surveys to non-probability online panels that are then computer administered, not phone surveys or face-to-face surveys anymore. So those two aspects bring with them unique challenges, but they also bring opportunities, and specifically the aspect of linking survey data with other types of big data, as we talked about in the past, provide great opportunities for social science research, right? So in the next three videos, I'm going to talk about each of those three kind of aspects of survey research in the digital age, or in the age of big data. First, we're going to talk about non-probability sampling and how we can make use of non-probability samples even if we want to generalize to a specific target population. In the video after that, I'm going to talk about computer administered interviews and some of the opportunities that we have with computer administered web-based surveys. And then in the last video, I'm going to talk about another example. We've already seen one example, and I'm going to talk about another example that links survey data with kind of big data sources to answer substantively interesting social science questions. Okay, so the next video will be on non-probability sampling.